Well, another unceremonious firing at the White House. President Trump says he fired National Security Advisor John Bolton via Twitter. But Bolton says, well, that's not what happened. CNN's Jim Acosta has that story.
For now former National Security Advisor John Bolton, it was an unceremonious firing by tweet. Standing outside the West Wing just hours before he was scheduled to join Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin to answer questions from reporters, Bolton was suddenly gone, with his former administration rivals.
I'm never surprised.
All smiles.
The president's entitled to the staff that he wants at any moment. This is a staff person who works directly for the president of the United States, and he should have people that he trusts and values and whose efforts and judgments benefit him in delivering American foreign policy.
The White House insists Bolton was fired, with the president announcing in a tweet, "I informed John Bolton last night that his services are no longer needed at the White House. I disagreed strongly with many of his suggestions, as did others in the administration, and therefore I asked John for his resignation, which was given to me this morning. I thank John very much for his service. I will be naming a new national security advisor next week." But Bolton essentially tweeted, "That's not true," claiming, "I offered to resign last night, and President Trump said, let's talk about it tomorrow." Despite the fact that Mr. Trump has now gone through 3 national security advisors, administration officials say there's no insecurity when it comes to the president's foreign policy team.
Is this national security team a mess?
Absolutely not. That's the most ridiculous question I've ever heard of. Let me just say, the national security team, which is what you asked, consists of the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, myself, the Chief of Staff, and many others.
Can you disagree with the president?
Of course.
Sources tell CNN Bolton had clashed with the president over a number of critical issues, including Mr. Trump's scrap plan to invite leaders of the Taliban to Camp David just days before September 11th. The president and vice president Mike Pence believe Bolton's team was leaking stories that top administration officials were questioning the idea of a Taliban meeting.
I think the view that there's some public discussions about Bolton being on the other side of meeting with the Taliban probably was a bridge too far. I don't know what happened there.
A foreign policy hawk, Bolton also disliked the idea of sitting down with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. Aides say Bolton's contrasting views and outspoken style had irritated the president for months.
He has strong views on things, but that's okay. I actually temper John, which is pretty amazing, isn't it?
Bolton also found himself at odds with Pompeo, who's much more willing to tout the president's foreign policy views.
I know everyone's talked about this for an awfully long time. There were definitely places that Bolton and I had different views.
With Bolton out of the way, the administration is sounding much more open to the idea of Mr. Trump sitting down with Iran's president at the upcoming United Nations General Assembly.
The president has made clear he's happy to take a meeting with no preconditions, but we are maintaining the maximum pressure campaign.